Chapter 1311 Garuda. Garuda, this alien has not been rising in the Bharat Alliance for a long time. It is probably in the past year that he suddenly began to become famous. That golden holy sword once killed many powerful people and finally won the title of one of the 8 immortals. Yang Xinxin made a judgment based on his ability characteristics. This guess is very accurate because the ability gap between aliens is relatively large. Especially for the strong people at the level of Epsilons, so far, there has not been a situation where 2 Epsilons have similar abilities. So Zhang Yi also believes that the golden alien that appeared that night is most likely from Garuda from Bharata. These guys are really thieves. Zhang Yi sneered, his eyes full of cold murderous intent. Uncle Yu came over and whispered to Zhang Yi with a serious face, "Zhang Yi, this matter has become a bit serious. Should we tell the situation to the region and notify other regions to find helpers? If foreign forces intervene, then the situation will not be a simple internal fight." Uncle Yu is a retired veteran. Needless to say, he is loyal to his country. He will never watch foreigners from outside the territory make trouble on the land of Huashu. Zhang Yi rubbed his chin and did not speak, but thought for a long time. Everyone looked at him, waiting for Zhang Yi to come up with an idea. But after a while, Zhang Yi said, "Don't alarm others for the time being." He explained to Uncle Yu and others, "We must look at the situation of this matter in 2 ways. He raised a finger. First, the foreigners in Bharata are plotting the entire southwest region. If this is the case, then there is no doubt that we must mobilize the whole country to go to war with them. At this point, Zhang Yi chuckled and shrugged, but I personally think the situation is not very likely. Yang Xinxin nodded approvingly. That's right. This situation is unlikely to happen. Zhang Yi stretched out his hand to Yang Xinxin and asked her to continue. Yang Xinxin said to everyone, "The southwest region, especially the snowy plateau, is vast, but the altitude is too high. Now that the ice age has come, it has become a barren land. The higher the altitude, the lower the temperature, the more scarce the supplies here are, and there are no rich resources. At this time, Bharata has not resolved its internal contradictions. The long-standing caste system and the gap between the rich and the poor have caused them to face many internal crises. In terms of national strength, they are far inferior to our Huashu kingdom. In terms of military strength, let alone the aliens, the reserves of the god of love are less than 1/10 of ours." She suddenly sneered. "Haha, it's the end of the world, but no one restricts the use of the god of love. It's better to say that it is an important deterrent basis for major forces. If they are not crazy, how dare they go to war with us for a piece of barren land at this time?" Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin's words made everyone relax a little. No one wants to see a large-scale war break out, because in that case, most people will become cannon fodder, and only a few high-level people will benefit. People like Zhang Yi who are content to enjoy life are most worried about major unrest. Yang Xinxin glanced at Zhang Yi, and Zhang Yi gave her an approving look. Yang Xinxin was encouraged, and her eyes softened and smiled. So, unless there is a full-scale war, we don't need to inform other regions about this. As for the reason, of course, the more forces we know, the less benefits we can get. She spread her hands. On the other hand, although morality seems not so important, we are invited after all. If we betray Paji Gasang so easily, it will also affect my brother's reputation. These explanations are well-founded and convincing. Zhang Yi continued to raise the second finger and said, "Then, it's the second point. They came here to plot the treasure of the demon kingdom under the Great Snow Mountain. I think this is the most reasonable. If they don't have the ability and need to get the snow region, then the legendary treasure of the demon kingdom is the most valuable existence for them." At this point, Zhang Yi stretched and leaned on the sofa, with his hands crossed. "If it's just because of that, we can simplify the problem." Everyone looked at Zhang Yi. Uncle Yu asked curiously, "How do you simplify it?" Zhang Yi said seriously, "Just do your best to gain the greatest benefits. If conditions permit, I will give priority to dealing with aliens from foreign lands. But this condition is within the scope of my ability." He raised a finger. "I will not put myself in a dangerous state and force a conflict with them." Uncle Yu nodded. He has known Zhang Yi for many years, and this is indeed Zhang Yi's style of doing things. That's right, but if I have the chance, I must kick those bastards in the ass. He showed a mouthful of cold white teeth, as if he wanted to bite those guys to death. Zhang Yi spread his hands. Everything will be done according to the circumstances. Everything is unknown, not only Zhang Yi, but also the other parties. They were also nervous and worried about the next action. In comparison, Zhang Yi was the most stable. Because he might not win, but he would definitely not lose. Even if the mission failed, he could escape with his own ability. Others came from afar, but they might lose their lives here. In the next few days, everyone tried every means to collect external intelligence. There were information about Songjia Temple, the 4 major families, and about foreign aliens. On the way, Zhang Yi went to the Great Snow Mountain again. He came to the gate of the Demon Kingdom, which was thousands of meters below the Great Snow Mountain. He didn't have time to observe it carefully the last time he came. This time, he was finally able to see this huge bluestone door clearly. This door is hundreds of meters high. Anyone standing here is as small as an ant. Imagine standing in front of the Empire State Building and looking up. Just a door gives people a feeling of towering into the sky. Zhang Yi couldn't imagine what kind of creature needed such a huge door to pass. Of course, it is also possible that this is just a symbolic building built for a sense of ritual. Zhang Yi carefully tried to use the power of the void to push the door, but his power was like a drop in the ocean, unable to move it at all. Zhang Yi was shocked and sighed. What kind of existence was King Geezer more than 2,000 years ago? Could it be that there were extraordinary people who were far superior to me in that era? It's incredible to think about it. If there really was such a person in ancient times, wouldn't he be able to sweep the world? Chapter 13:12, Rebel Camp. Zhang Yi was puzzled, but the facts were in front of him, and he couldn't help but believe it. He carefully observed in front of the gate, and from a distance, he seemed to be able to feel a gloomy and oppressive atmosphere coming through the cracks in the door. Zhang Yi shuddered and planned to leave. But accidentally, he found something interesting on the bluestone door. The door was carved with scenes of ancient wars, so there were many uneven areas. Zhang Yi didn't notice it at first. But this time he looked carefully and found the details. In some places, there were obviously grooves deliberately left, which seemed to be used to place keys. He looked carefully and found 4 such places on the entire door. 4 grooves for keys. Is this what the 4 chieftain families inherited? Zhang Yi suddenly realized it in his heart at this moment. No wonder Paji Gasang said that the 4 major families must join forces to open the door of the Demon Kingdom. So that's it.
Zhang
Yi suddenly understood something in his heart. No wonder Paji Gasang didn't worry about Zhang Yi abandoning them and acting on his own. Without the help of the 4 Tusi families, other people simply cannot enter the world behind the Qingshi Gate. Therefore, those aliens from outside the domain must also cooperate with the local Tusi. After reading it, Zhang Yi turned and left. Everything will have to wait until the end of the Chuanzhao Fahui in a few days before there will be an answer. When Zhang Yi returned home, he told his friends what he found at the gate of the Demon Kingdom. Liang Yu came over with a look of hesitation on his face. Zhang Yi, I have something to tell you. Seeing Liang Yu's strange look, Zhang Yi thought for a while and asked, did the rebels contact you? Liang Yu is very easy to understand. Most of the time, if she has any worries, it will be written on her face. So in order to hide her inner thoughts, when facing outsiders, she always maintains the image of an iceberg beauty and has almost no expression. Liang Yu's face flushed red, and she didn't expect that she was so easy to guess. She nodded. Well, that's it. Just today, Zhuoma, a cadre of the rebels, finally contacted Liang Yu. Zhang Yi rescued them before, and Zhuoma asked for Liang Yu's contact information, saying that she would contact Liang Yu if needed. Zhang Yi asked Liang Yu to talk to them at that time. Maybe there would be unexpected gains. Sure enough, they came to the door.
Oh?
What do they want to do? Zhang Yi smiled and sat on the sofa. Yang Xia quickly brought a cup of steaming milk tea. Zhang Yi drank milk tea while listening to Liang Yu's report. Liang Yu looked around cautiously. Although with their strength, there was no possibility of anyone spying nearby, she was still very cautious. Liang Yu said she wanted to invite me over to talk. She didn't say something very clearly, but I guess it's related to the Chuanzhao Dharma Assembly that will be held in a few days. Yang Xinxin said lightly, the Chuanzhao Dharma Assembly is held once a year and is the most important festival in the Snowy Plateau. It is also related to the opening of the underground demon kingdom. If I were the rebels, I would definitely not miss the opportunity to make trouble at this time. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows. But didn't they say that the Chuanzhao Dharma Assembly is particularly sacred to the Tantric Buddhism? Even the two sides of the war will cease fire at this time. Yang Xinxin smiled and said, it was the past, and it is now. People nowadays are not so disciplined. A truce can be made during the war because the outcome is not yet determined, and it is not a life-and-death crisis. Otherwise, who would sacrifice their own country for a Dharma assembly? Zhang Yi looked at Liang Yu. Where did they ask you to meet? The rebels were very cautious, which was right, because once their whereabouts were discovered, they would be strangled by the four chieftain families. People are always like this. If there are no external enemies, they will fight internally like crazy. But when there is an external enemy, they can quickly unite to face the enemy. The rebels want to uproot the roots of the four major families, which they certainly cannot tolerate. Liang Yu said, they said that they will inform me of the meeting place tomorrow and ask me to go to the meeting. However, they only invited me and Mu Yan. Zhang Yi smiled and said, what they say does not count. He stretched out his hand and slapped his thigh. Tomorrow we will all go. I also want to see what kind of people those guys are. Zhang Yi never simply distinguishes others by good and bad people. In his eyes, there are only people who are good to him or not. Therefore, the rebels may not represent justice. If those people have no value to him, he will not have anything to do with them. Liang Yu nodded. The next day, Liang Yu came to a place in the vast snow-capped mountains at the agreed time. Zhang Yi and others all came, but they were just hiding in Mu Yan's shadow space. Today's shadow space has been built into a gorgeous castle by these energetic women in the family. The house was built by Lu Karen. The furniture comes from major shopping malls in Tianhai City, all of which are top luxury goods. In addition to accommodation, they have also developed a fishing ground and a flower garden here. When Zhang Yi is busy outside, they can fish leisurely by the flower garden or have afternoon tea. Life is so comfortable. Even Zhang Yi sighed that he wanted to change days with them. Liang Yu waited for a long time at the agreed location. After arriving at the agreed time, she received another message. Zhuoma informed her to go to the next location. This was expected, and it had to be done out of caution. Liang Yu patiently followed Zhuoma's instructions and went to the next area. In this way, 3 locations were changed 3 times in a row. When they appeared again, they were already in a deserted mountain and wilderness. Liang Yu finally saw Zhuoma. She was riding on a huge wolf, followed by a group of thick-haired black-backed wild wolves. Zhang Yi could see everything Liang Yu saw through the imaging equipment she carried. Only then did he see the female cadre of the resistance army with his own eyes. Although his equipment was not sophisticated, he had a pretty good combat uniform. His hair was tied into braids, and he had a long whip made of black alloy on his waist. Seeing Liang Yu, Zhuoma's eyes lit up. She jumped down from the wolf and came to Liang Yu, stopping a few meters away. Thank you, benefactor, for coming here to see me. Zhuoma placed her right hand on her left chest and bowed deeply. Liang Yu looked around and didn't find anyone else. Zhuoma said, I'm the only one here today. Please don't worry. Liang Yu smiled. You came here alone because you're afraid of risks, right? Chapter 13:13 Asking for Help. Zhuoma said to Liang Yu very frankly, Please forgive me, we rebels must always be cautious. Because those chieftains' lackeys will use all kinds of despicable means to deal with us. You saved my life. If you are really a chieftain's lackey, I will die here at most, and I won't lose my brothers. Liang Yu didn't say much. She just nodded. At this time, Zhang Yi, who had been unable to hold back, appeared from Mu Yan's space. The moment he appeared, Zhuoma immediately took defensive actions and stared at him cautiously. Who are you? Zhang Yi raised his hand to her. Don't be nervous. I am like her. I am from outside. Zhuoma stared at Liang Yu, trying to see something from her face. Liang Yu said to her, he is our boss. You can trust him. Zhuoma asked Zhang Yi cautiously, are you here to help us? Zhang Yi couldn't help laughing. Come to help you? You think it's pretty beautiful. Zhang Yi touched his nose. I guess so. Well, I'm quite curious about your resistance army. But this time you took the initiative to contact us. Tell us what you plan to do. Seeing Zhang Yi's attitude, Zhuoma's face was extremely serious. But this time, she also made a great determination and was ready to sacrifice. Anyway, things have come to this point, why not give it a try? She continued to look at Liang Yu, and she trusted the woman who saved her more. Benefactor, you saved us and those poor serfs last time. I know you are a kind person, so I ask you to help us here. Liang Yu glanced at Zhang Yi and asked, what do you want us to do? Zhuoma looked at Liang Yu, then at Zhang Yi, and hesitated to speak. After thinking for a moment, she said cautiously, next, we will have an action. If we meet you at that time, I hope you can show mercy. Or, you can help us cover? She said vaguely, obviously not completely trusting Zhang Yi and Liang Yu. But Zhang Yi admired her very much. It's right to be cautious. Zhuoma was evasive, but Zhang Yi saw the clue. You want to take advantage of the Chuanzhao Dharma assembly to cause trouble, right? He said to Zhuoma with a smile. Zhuoma's pupils shrank, and then sneered, you seem to be a little smart. Zhang Yi sneered, is this your attitude when asking for help? If you really want us to help, show some sincerity. Liang Yu also said to Zhuoma, Zhuoma, this is our captain. If you really need help, you can tell him. Zhuoma gritted his teeth and hesitated in his heart. Their resistance army really needs strong assistance. They also heard about the previous battle between the four major families. Knowing that the Pai family invited a group of very powerful mercenaries, even the Dharma protector Vajra of Songjia Temple was not their opponent. This made Zhuoma and others very happy. In order to ensure that the next action can be completed smoothly, they decided to contact Liang Yu. I hope they are kind-hearted and can help the resistance army. At least, don't attack them at that time. Zhuoma took a deep breath. She looked at Zhang Yi and Liang Yu and said, can I tell you the story of our resistance army? Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows. Sure. He didn't know what this woman wanted to do, but it didn't hurt to listen. Zhuoma began to tell the story of the resistance army. To be honest, her narrative ability was not strong, very average. And the story she told was similar to what Zhang Yi imagined. It was nothing more than that after the end of the world, the four chieftain families completely ruled the southwest region and made all the free people their domestic slaves. They ordered these serfs at will, killed them, and even cruelly executed them to make magic tools and eat them. At this time, some people who were unwilling to be enslaved rose up and established a resistance army against the four chieftain families. Balabala, Zhuoma said with a sad face. Zhang Yi was not interested in listening, just because this story was too old-fashioned. He had seen too many similar plots in Tianhai City. How could he be so easily moved? Zhuoma did try to impress Zhang Yi and Liang Yu and let them help her. But Zhang Yi just watched coldly, without any sign of being moved. This made Zhuoma feel a little anxious. In short, I hope you two can understand. Our resistance army truly represents the interests of the people of the Snowy Plateau. Everything we do is to liberate those enslaved people. You are all powerful people. Don't help the tyrants and help the cruel and hateful chieftains. Zhang Yi said lightly, let's get to the point. What do you want us to help do? And what can you give us? He only likes to make deals, not to be kidnapped by morality. Zhuoma took a deep breath and then slowly said, I said, our next action. Chapter 13-14, he is the Snow Mountain Condor. Zhang Yi was basically sure of the other party's purpose. He was not very interested in the affairs of the southwest region. As long as it did not disturb his plan, other things were casual. What benefits can you provide me? He asked lightly. Zhuoma gritted her teeth, stared at Zhang Yi and asked, what do you want to get? The conditions of the rebels were extremely difficult. After all, the southwest region had already been divided up by the 4 major families. It was difficult for them to have a full meal now. So what they could give Zhang Yi could not be said to be pitiful, but almost nothing. Zhang Yi smiled. You came to us for help, but you don't know what to show your sincerity. Zhou Ma's face was a little ugly. We don't have anything to show. She really couldn't say this. Seeing her embarrassed look, Zhang Yi didn't continue to embarrass her. It's not impossible to let us help. But I need to see your leader. Zhou Ma's eyes immediately became sharp. You want to see our leader? The leader of the rebels, nicknamed the Snow Mountain Eagle. He is the leader who organized the rebels and the spiritual pillar of all the rebels. In the past 2 years, the 4 chieftains and Songjia Temple have been looking for the whereabouts of the Snow Mountain Eagle. As long as he is caught, the resistance will naturally disintegrate. Yes, I want to see the Snow Mountain Eagle, Zhang Yi said. I can't make the decision on this matter. Zhou Ma wanted to refuse, but considering Liang Yu's strength, her boss must be stronger. If these people join the encirclement and suppression of them at that time, it will be tantamount to adding insult to injury for the current resistance. Whatever, Zhang Yi said. Anyway, we will meet soon. After he said that, he said to Liang Yu, let's go back. Liang Yu looked at Zhou Ma, and Zhou Ma said, I will go back and report this to our leader. If possible, I will send you a message. Liang Yu nodded. Okay, I'll wait for your answer. Liang Yu followed Zhang Yi and left. Not long after, they returned to the large courtyard of Paji Gasang's house without anyone noticing. After returning, Liang Yu asked Zhang Yi about his plan. Zhang Yi, why do you suddenly want to meet their leader? Zhang Yi said, originally, I just went there to join in the fun. After all, a group of poor and weak guys can't pose any threat to Songjia Temple. With the burial master in charge, all resistance is meaningless. Not to mention that they are not opponents in terms of force. Even the secret religious believers in the Snowy Plateau will not follow them to rebel against the burial master. But I suddenly thought of something very interesting. A meaningful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Liang Yu was a little confused. What is it? Yang Xinxin gave an answer. Brother Zhang Yi suspects that the leader of the rebels is the golden-winged alien who appeared under the snowy mountains that night. As soon as these words were spoken, Zhang Yi's actions suddenly became extremely reasonable. The rebels were just small characters in Zhang Yi's eyes. However, if there were Epsilon-level aliens among them, it would be different. Zhang Yi took a sip of tea and said calmly, a person's name may be very different from the person himself, but a person's nickname will never lie. The Snow Mountain Divine Eagle, this title will not be groundless. Unless he has shown some similar characteristics, for example, an orc-type, bird-type alien. This is consistent with the golden-winged alien I saw that night. And the rebels were still able to compete with the 4 chieftain families for 2.5 years under the extremely scarce supplies. There is an Epsilon behind them, which can perfectly explain all this. Zhang Yi thought about the experience that night. At the beginning, the golden-winged alien and the funeral master were hostile to each other. But when Zhang Yi and the other 2 aliens appeared, the 2 suddenly joined forces. This made Zhang Yi very strange for a while, and he couldn't figure out the relationship between the 2. But if the golden-winged alien is the leader of the rebels, the Snow Mountain Divine Eagle, everything makes sense. There are 2 Epsilons on the Snowy Plateau? Everyone felt very incredible. Of course, they knew how difficult it was for an Epsilon-level alien to appear. Only one Epsilon-level alien is born in 100 to 200 million people. Not only does he have talent, but he also needs enough resources to grow. Therefore, in the entire Huashu country, there are less than 10 Epsilons known to the public. But the southwest region actually has 2? Zhang Yi said, the strength of that golden-winged alien is not strong. Although we fought briefly that night, I could feel that his strength was very weak and was not enough to fight against the burial master. Zhou Qir said, there is also a gap between Epsilons. If his strength is not enough, even if we win him over as an ally, it may not be of much help, right? It's hard to say. Zhang Yi habitually rubbed the back of his hand and slowly narrowed his eyes. There seems to be something special between that guy and the burial master. I can't explain why, but I did feel a little subtle that day. He has fought with the burial master, which means that he knows the burial master's strength and even weaknesses better than anyone else. And this is the information I need most. In the field of modern warfare, intelligence warfare is particularly critical. The same is true for the battle between aliens. If you can get enough intelligence about the opponent and make adequate preparations, it is entirely possible to fight the strong with the weak. The ability index only represents the theoretical ability value, but the data can sometimes be wrong. For example, Zhang Yi. 70% of his ability is in defense. If someone has done enough homework on him in advance and found some means to prevent him from opening the dimensional door, just this one method can destroy more than half of him. So now, no matter how strong Zhang Yi is, he still habitually moves step by step and always does things carefully. Because of this, Zhang Yi would do everything he could to prepare for the clash with the burial master. For this reason, he didn't mind cooperating with the rebels. Deep in the Qinling Mountains, the vast peaks are endless, stretching thousands of miles, from the westernmost side of the snowy plateau to the eastern side, almost spanning the entire southwest region. On the vast snowy mountains, a golden eagle squatted quietly on the peak, scanning the surroundings with its sharp eyes. Within a radius of dozens of miles, the movement of every blade of grass and every tree was in its sight. And in a valley not far away was the rebel camp. Chapter 13:15. What's the harm in meeting? Snowy Plateau, Rebel Camp. It does take great courage to resist power, and one must also face an extremely difficult living environment. The rebel camp gives people a feeling that is even worse than the refugee camp in peacetime. The underground cave is dimly lit, and the scarcity of energy forces them to focus their main activities during the day. At night, there is no light except in the area where cadres work. The weapons are basically outdated and worn-out firearms. Occasionally, there are advanced equipment snatched from the 2C private soldiers, but the number is small and can only be provided to foreigners. Most of the people living here wear dirty and torn cotton-padded jackets and down jackets and live in coats and sleeping bags. But even so, no one shows any attitude of complaint. The reason is simple. Those who can come here to participate in the rebellion against the 2C rule are people who can't survive. Zhuoma rode the tall wolf back to the camp. As she walked along the way, her movements along the way fell into the eyes of the golden eagle lurking in the mountains. At the entrance of the camp, Zhuoma turned over and got off the wolf. With just a glance, the tamed beast ran to the side and got into the snow pile to keep warm. Zhuoma came to the camp, and everyone who saw her along the way greeted her warmly. Zhuoma responded one by one, but her steps were very fast. "Where is the Buddha child?" She stopped a female soldier on the road and asked. In the rebel army, the leader Snow Mountain Condor is called the Buddha child. After all, in the Tantric sect, if you want to mobilize the people to resist the chieftain, you need to use the name of religion. The Buddha child is a title corresponding to the master of the cemetery. The female soldier smiled and said, "Sister Zhuoma, the Buddha child is in there showing everyone frostbite." Zhuoma nodded, and she knew that it was the serfs who had just been rescued a few days ago and several trapped women. She walked briskly to where people lived. The cave was full of simple tents, and the temperature of the underground cave was much warmer than the outside world. People were wrapped in blankets and coats, and were reluctant to do more activities for fear of consuming excess energy. A tall man in a black robe was walking in the crowd, applying medicine to those who had frostbite. Zhuoma walked not far from him, but did not disturb him. She just watched him apply medicine on the hands of a teenage girl. His movements were gentle, as if he was taking care of his own daughter. He applied the medicine and comforted her. The little girl, who was in the serf camp not long ago and didn't know when she would die, had been looking at him with admiration. After a while, the Snow Mountain Eagle finally finished his work. He turned around and looked at Zhuoma, smiling. "Zhuoma, you're back? Let's go to the side and talk." His voice was low and a little tired. But what people cared about most was the black mask made of unknown materials on his face, which covered his entire face. Zhuoma accompanied him to the side, and the two of them found a pile of miscellaneous items and sat on it. Zhuoma told the Snow Mountain Eagle everything that happened today. They said they would wait for a reply. Buddha's son, you have to make the decision on this matter. The Snow Mountain Eagle listened silently and lowered his head to think. Originally, we didn't have much hope that they would help. It's just that I heard you say that the mercenaries of the Pudge family seem to have compassion for us, so I asked you to give it a try. According to common sense, they are employed by the Pudge family and they will most likely refuse. They just went to Liangyu for help with the idea of trying their best. The rebels were too poor and had nothing to give to others. But I didn't expect that things would turn around. Zhuoma frowned and said worriedly, but now we don't know whether they are kind-hearted to help us or the chieftain set up a trap. After all, Zhang Yi's request was to meet the Snow Mountain Eagle. That was the person the chieftain family wanted to kill the most. To see me? The Snow Mountain Eagle's tone was full of smiles. His eyes under the mask flashed brightly. I think I roughly know who that person is. Zhuoma looked at him in surprise. Do you know who he is? Snow Mountain Eagle nodded. I guess I know. However, if it is really him, then we have hope of overthrowing the chieftain's rule. He thought of what happened that night. 5 Epsilon-level aliens gathered in the Great Snow Mountain. This scene can be said to be something that none of the 5 of them expected. And the powerful Liangyu was just a subordinate. It is conceivable that her boss must be one of the few people who appeared in the Great Snow Mountain that night. If they can get the help of an Epsilon, then their wish will really be hopeful. Snow Mountain Eagle supported his chin with both hands and thought carefully for a long time. Then he said to Zhuoma, Zhuoma, you can agree to their conditions. However, there is a prerequisite. Not long after, Liangyu received a message from Zhuoma, and she hurried over to show the message to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi, look, her message came. Zhang Yi took a look and couldn't help but laugh. Because it said that after their action was over, they could meet with Zhang Yi. The other party was also a very cautious person. Zhang Yi, what should we do? Liangyu asked. Zhang Yi smiled faintly. Promise him. Anyway, we just need to do nothing at that time, and there will be no loss. Well, then I'll reply to her. Seeing that Zhang Yi had no objection, Liangyu immediately gave Zhuoma an affirmative answer. Time soon came to the day of the Quanzhou Dharma assembly. In fact, the area around Songjia Temple was extremely lively in the past few days. Tens of thousands of serfs worked here, making the area around Songjia Temple extremely solemn. Huge logs were erected, and they were hung with long and gorgeous cloth. Without exception, the wooden stakes must be carved with exquisite Buddha pictures and model Buddhist scriptures by craftsmen. On this day, Zhou Kur and Yang Xia came to Zhang Yi. Seeing that the women at home seemed to be hesitant and full of expectations, Zhang Yi smiled and asked, Is there something? Do you want to attend the Quanzhou Dharma assembly? The women looked at each other and laughed. Zhou Kur said, You can't hide anything from me. You guessed it before I even opened my mouth. Zhang Yi said, There's nothing to see in this place except that grand meeting. It was freezing cold, and the scene was bleak everywhere. Yang Xia came over, clapped her hands and said, It's not easy for us to come to the snow region. If we can see the Quanzhou Dharma assembly with our own eyes, it will be worth the trip. Chapter 13:16. The Quanzhou Dharma assembly is held. The Quanzhou Dharma assembly is of great significance in the snowy plateau. It is difficult for local believers to come to Songjia Temple and participate in the festival in the core area, let alone people from the outside world. But this time, they followed Paji Gesang and could go directly to the center of the festival. No one wants to miss such an opportunity. So they asked Zhang Yi to be with Zhang Yi that day instead of staying in Mu Yan's shadow space. Although we can see it in the shadow space, it's the same as the difference between watching TV and watching the real scene. We still want to see it with our own eyes. Zhou Haimei smiled and looked at Zhang Yi earnestly. Even Liu Karen blinked his big eyes, and although he didn't speak, he looked expectant. It has been more than 2 years since the end of the world. In this frozen world, there is a dead silence everywhere, and it is difficult for such a large-scale event to be held. Who doesn't want to go and see it in person? I heard that there will be performances at that time, Yang Xia said in a low voice. Zhang Yi looked at their appearance and couldn't help but sigh. You are too conspicuous, and it is easy for people to target you. You know, I always like to keep a low profile. For safety reasons, before coming, Zhou Ke used the ability of body transformation on everyone to change part of the outline. However, this method is only a minor adjustment, and it will not cause a person's body shape and appearance to change too much. Especially the women, they all love beauty, so they are still beautiful after the adjustment. You know, the women in Zhang Yi's family are not ordinary. Either they are big stars in the film and television industry, or they are noble ladies, or they are first-class talents. Their appearance is indeed too outstanding in today's snowy plateau. What is there to worry about? Songjia Temple is a group of llamas. Aren't they empty of the four elements? Yang Xia hugged Zhang Yi's arm and said coquettishly, just let us go over and take a look. Anyway, we don't have to worry about safety issues with you here. Zhang Yi glanced at her unhappily. Nowadays, monks are all businessmen. Do you really think they are not interested in women's? Although he said so, Zhang Yi still agreed to their request. He just told them to cover their faces when the time comes and follow him without walking around casually. Zhou Ke and the others jumped up with joy. It can be seen that they are looking forward to participating in the Chuanzhao Dharma assembly. Zhang Yi touched his chin and thought to himself that when he had time, he could organize some people in Tianhai City to form a song and dance troupe. If there were not enough people, he would go to Blizzard City to borrow some. Zhu Zheng would still give him face. Moreover, the frog and the big dragon cat were ready-made bands. Giving them some people would also make them happier. On the day of the Chuanzhao Dharma assembly, Zhang Yi and others followed Paji Gesang's motorcade and headed towards Songjia Temple. Although they were attending the Dharma assembly, Paji Gesang's private soldiers still followed with guns and live ammunition, and Solong Deji never left Paji Gesang's side. Zhang Yi and the others took their own car, just behind Paji Gesang's car. When they arrived at the outskirts of Songjia Temple, they saw a black mass of heads moving from afar. The wind was cold, and the temperature outside was probably minus 70 to 80 degrees Celsius. It was a very dangerous state if any inch of skin was exposed outside. However, the followers of the Tantric Buddhism still knelt outside the Songjia Temple with almost crazy enthusiasm. They wore dirty and torn cotton clothes, knelt on the snow, held incense burners in their hands, and chanted. Tens of thousands of people knelt in front of the temple, like a group of lambs lying on the ground, waiting to be skinned and put down. Zhang Yi's mind emerged from a scene of a slaughterhouse near his hometown when he was a child, and he couldn't help but think of this place. The difference is that the lambs were forced, while these people were willing and even proud of it. With so many people, there were naturally monks responsible for maintaining order. They held long whips in their hands, and once they found followers blocking the way, they immediately waved the whips to drive them aside. A wide and straight road was separated from the crowd, leading directly to the Songjia Temple. Their convoy was forced to stop outside, and out of respect they had to walk to the temple. Zhang Yi and his friends got off the car, and everyone was wrapped tightly in winter clothes, so they didn't feel cold. After walking for a long time, they finally arrived at the most sacred temple on the snowy plateau. Outside the Songjia Temple, there was a circle of monks sitting cross-legged. They were all from small temples outside and were not qualified to enter to participate in the ceremony. Zhang Yi said to Liang Yu and others lightly, "Pay attention to the surroundings. If there are foreigners coming here, I believe they will also show up." After the Chuanzhao ceremony is over, several major forces will go to the Great Snow Mountain. Therefore, this grand event is extremely critical, and those mysterious Ypsilons will probably not miss this ceremony. Hearing this, everyone was also carefully watching the people around. After following Paji Gesang into the temple, the scene inside was indeed magnificent and glorious. The inside and outside of the temple are two completely different worlds. Every beam and pillar here is filled with a sacred and ancient atmosphere, but this atmosphere requires a lot of time and money to create. Paji Gesang reminded Zhang Yi, when the Dharma assembly is held, as usual, Monks from all temples will gather together to discuss Buddhism. This process is long and boring, and it will take at least half a day. Please wait patiently. Zhang Yi nodded. No problem. The Chuanzhao Dharma assembly usually lasts 3 to 5 days. After all, people from the entire snowy plateau will come to worship. Paji Gesang left first. As a local chieftain, he had to pay homage to the funeral master, and there were many other etiquettes. He knew that Zhang Yi hated trouble, so he asked several of his men to take Zhang Yi to visit nearby. He just told Zhang Yi not to go too far, and not to enter the Buddhist temple easily to avoid collision. Zhang Yi nodded. It happened that the place was lively at this time. Since people came from all directions, monks from all over the place gathered together and began to discuss Buddhism. Zhang Yi and his friends came over to watch the excitement. The debate of Tantric Buddhism is very interesting, similar to the form of a contest. The contestant sits in front, waiting for other monks to come and challenge. If the debate fails, he can only run away in shame. People who debate often high-five while asking questions. When Zhang Yi saw this scene, he felt it was just like an old lady in the countryside quarreling. Because her tone was not strong enough, she had to accompany it with fierce actions to make herself seem more reasonable. Although the process was boring, fortunately, the content of the debate was different. Zhang Yi and a few others wandered around nearby and watched many debates, just like watching the neighbor ant quarreling. With Zhou Qi, Liang Yu and others accompanying them, it didn't feel boring. Yang Xia took out the fried melon seeds from her body and distributed them to everyone. Everyone watched the show while eating melon seeds. Chapter 13-17. Meeting the Undertaker again. Zhang Yi originally planned to use the Chuanzhao Dharma assembly to find the several Ypsilons he met that night. Now, the identities of 2 people can be roughly confirmed. One is the funeral master, and the other is the snow mountain condor. But there are still 2 people who he cannot confirm who they are and where they are from. However, in the morning, several chieftains went to participate in the ceremony, and the venue was too large, and there were people everywhere. He couldn't find anyone suspicious among so many people. He simply spent the whole morning in a relaxed manner. At about noon, a monk pushed out a cart with many thermos barrels on it. And those believers who knelt devoutly outside the Songjia temple fell down because of the cold weather. The monk came to the believers, opened the thermos barrel, and scooped out bowls of sticky soup and porridge from it. It was black, and I didn't know what it was made of. It was lunch at noon, and the square around the entire Songjia temple was suddenly filled with a strong smell of food. Zhang Yi also felt a little hungry, so he called Zhou Qi and a few others to the back to find a place to eat first. But soon, the people from the Paji family came over and said that Songjia temple had prepared meals for the distinguished guests. Zhou Qi said, "The meals prepared by such a large temple are usually prepared by chefs, and the taste is very good." Zhang Yi sneered, "Of course it is prepared by the chef. Today I saw Luo Dan coming with a bunch of kitchen utensils." Everyone suddenly felt a chill. Zhang Yi asked the Paji family member to go back and report that he had found a way to eat, and there was no need to call him over to eat together. So a few people found a side hall, and Zhang Yi took out the food from the alien space. It was still steaming hot, and everyone feasted on it. At this time, in a Buddhist temple where Songjia Temple was having a banquet, Luo Dan was dressed in white, with his hands elegantly placed in front of him, and about to introduce today's meal to the distinguished senior officials at the table. "Respected Chiba, chieftains, and monks, today I have prepared the most delicious roasted suckling lamb for you." His big hand pointed to the dining table, which was filled with food, almost unable to fit in. In the 2 large silver plates in the middle was a pile of meat that was crispy on the outside, and tender on the inside, brown on the outside, and white on the inside. A strong and almost enchanting strange aroma had already lingered in the whole room. "The meat we choose is all lambs, less than 100 days old, born by ewes that we carefully raised. This kind of meat is very delicious, with a milky flavor, and melts in your mouth." Everyone at the table could no longer hold back. The sound of rolling in the throat and swallowing saliva came one after another. Everyone clenched the knife and fork in their hands, looking greedily at the table of delicious food. As soon as Luo Dan finished speaking, they rushed over, tore the meat on the table, and stuffed it into their mouths. It is hard to imagine that these nobles of the snowy plateau, the so-called monks, would show such an ugly appearance. They don't look like a group of people, but a group of pigs fighting for food. Luo Dan looked at the scene, his mouth slightly raised, nodded slightly, and then left. Zhang Yi and his friends finished their meal and waited for the afternoon to come in the temple. The Chuanzhao Dharma assembly will be a formal activity in the afternoon. This is what Paji Geseng told him, and the funeral master will personally preside over it at that time. Zhang Yi walked out of the hall. It was freezing cold outside, but there were complete heating facilities in the house. No matter how cold it is, the Buddha can't be cold, otherwise, how can they sit on the cushion and chant sutras with compassion? Heavy snow was falling from the sky. In the cold winter, the snow was heavier than usual. The ancient tantric-style palace is very tall, and the red pillars outside are 3 or 4 people high, requiring 2 people to hug. Zhang Yi leaned against the door, folded his hands on his chest, and quietly looked at the heavy snow outside. Zhou Ke also came over. She stood side by side with Zhang Yi and sighed softly. I wonder how many people will die after the snow. Zhang Yi thought of the tens of thousands of people kneeling outside and sneered contemptuously. Those who can survive until now, even if they are not extraordinary people, probably have mutated to be cold-resistant. Survival of the fittest. This is the law of the world. Not long after Zhang Yi finished speaking, a deep and gentle voice suddenly came to his ears. Donor, what you said is wrong. If all living beings bully the weak, then order will be gone, and the world will be devastated. Zhou Ke looked curiously in the direction of the voice. Zhang Yi's smile became even stronger, and he slowly turned his head. Few people can approach him without making any noise, even the master of the tantric sect. In the corridor not far away, a young man in luxurious robes walked slowly over. He was tall, and his appearance was not handsome, but he had a kind of aura that made people feel peaceful. This was not the first time Zhang Yi dealt with him. The two had met twice before. Zhang Yi nodded at him. You must be the funeral master. The funeral master raised his head and was about to talk to Zhang Yi, but his eyes unconsciously moved to Zhang Yi's side like iron being attracted by a magnet. Zhou Ke stood next to Zhang Yi. Because she had just finished her meal, she did not wrap her body tightly with combat uniform. Therefore, the beautiful face was clearly visible. Even through the clothes, it was difficult to conceal her perfect body proportions. It was a bit exaggerated to describe Zhou Ke as stunningly beautiful, but her beautiful appearance was not inferior to that of a first-line movie star, and coupled with the temperament of a lady from aristocratic family, few people would not look at her twice after seeing her. And on the snowy plateau, she was far ahead. Even the funeral master, who was not close to the world of fireworks, could not help but lose his mind for a moment. Although he quickly shifted his gaze, this subtle movement could not escape Zhang Yi's eyes. It seems that this young funeral master is not as simple-minded as Paji Geseng said. Zhang Yi sneered in his heart, stretched out his hand to hold Zhou Ke's waist, and pressed her close to his body to declare ownership. The funeral master walked not far from Zhang Yi and performed a Buddhist ceremony. Donor, we meet again. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows, not knowing which time the funeral master was referring to.
Did
he know that he was there that night? Zhang Yi was not sure in his heart, but even if he was guessed, he didn't care much. Everyone knew why so many Ypsilons suddenly appeared on the snowy plateau, and he didn't really need to pretend. I've heard a lot about you, Zhang Yi said lightly, neither warm nor distant. The funeral master asked, have you had lunch? Zhang Yi nodded and said that he had already eaten. The funeral master smiled and said that he had just eaten and came out for a walk. Zhang Yi asked curiously, are you done? He thought that the funeral master would have a meal with Paji Geseng and others. Hearing this, the funeral master shook his head slightly. I'm not used to eating with them. Chapter 1318. Purity. Zhang Yi couldn't help but feel nauseous when he thought of the so-called delicious food enjoyed by Paji Geseng and others. I thought it was a special treat for the senior executives of your southwest region. I didn't expect that the funeral master didn't like it. The funeral master put his hands together, lowered his eyes, and said, Ba. Everything is the cause and effect of all living beings. Zhang Yi rolled his eyes. These guys can substitute any matter into the illusory cause and effect, which is really hypocritical. However, he also understood that the entire southwest region is in the current situation, and he alone cannot solve it. It is true that the funeral master has strong strength. But a person who has been practicing Buddhism in seclusion for more than 10 years cannot have strong political tactics and management capabilities. Even if he doesn't like some of the practices of the senior executives of the southwest region, he can't solve everything by himself. This is why Zhang Yi, who is obviously the strongest in the Jiangnan region, still chooses to live in peace with Blizzard City and let Zhu Zheng rule the affairs of the entire region. The funeral master saw the disdain in Zhang Yi's eyes. He was not angry, but just smiled slightly and reached out to catch a snowflake from the eaves. You may not believe it, but everything has a reason. Just like you can come to this place. Everything is inevitable. There will be no unexpected ending. Zhang Yi heard the zen hidden in the words of the funeral master, but he was not a person who liked to guess riddles. Zhang Yi nodded with a smile. I think what you said makes some sense. The funeral master smiled. I'm leaving. He didn't say much, just turned and left. It seems that he didn't go to see Zhang Yi specifically. He really just came here for a stroll after dinner and happened to meet Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi did not express his willingness to communicate, so he left on his own. After all, there was an important Dharma meeting in the afternoon that he needed to preside over in person. Zhang Yi watched him leave. When he realized that he had gone far away, a meaningful smile appeared on Zhang Yi's face. Is this the pure and flawless funeral master who is devoted to Buddhism, as Paji Gesang said? Zhou Kuer said, he gives people the feeling that he is indeed not worldly. After all, he has been in seclusion for more than 10 years to study Buddhism. I believe he has seen through everything. He gives people a sense of emptiness and forgetfulness. That's what you think, Zhang Yi said with a smile. There was a bright light in his eyes. This contact may be just an accident, but he has gained a lot. It may not be a good thing for a person to grow up in an environment that is too pure. Zhou Kuder blinked her big eyes and asked curiously, what does this mean? Zhang Yi, what did you see? Zhang Yi thought about it and told Zhou Kuder a story first. There was a neighbor in our family before. Her mother was a nurse in the hospital. She gave birth to a child later. In order to keep the child healthy and not be harmed by bacteria from the outside world, she created a nearly sterile environment for the child since childhood. Even her child only drank distilled water. Guess what happened later? Zhang Yi smiled and looked at Zhou Kuer. As a professional doctor, Zhou Kuer certainly knew what consequences this would cause. If that's the case, his body will become very sensitive and fragile. Once it comes into contact with bacteria from the outside world, it will be easy to get sick because the body has no resistance. Zhang Yi pursed his lips in the direction where the funeral master was walking away. That guy is the same. Not in contact with the outside world. It is indeed possible to concentrate on practicing Buddhism, but it is like fine porcelain, which is easy to break once touched. Do you know that the look in his eyes when he looked at you just now was full of worldly meanings for a moment? Zhang Yi is a man, so he understands the look in a man's eyes when he sees a beautiful woman. The funeral master who is devoted to Buddhism couldn't help but change his eyes for a moment when he saw a beauty like Zhou Kuer, although he quickly shifted his gaze and tried to cover it up. But Zhang Yi had been paying attention to him, so he caught this scene. Even later, he didn't look at Zhou Kuer again. Zhou Kuer's face was slightly red, and she hugged his arm tightly. What do you mean? Do you want to say that he fell in love with me at first sight? Zhang Yi took a deep breath and pinched her nose. You are beautiful. Isn't it normal for others to admire you? But that guy was simply moved by your beauty. This shows that his heart is not impeccable. It is even possible that he has a weak resistance in this regard due to years of abstinence. Zhou Kuer couldn't help but cover her mouth and laughed. With his status and position, what kind of woman can't he get? Don't be ridiculous. Zhang Yi said, that's the truth. But don't forget, the funeral master is the spiritual symbol of the southwest region and the representative of Tantra. The people below can ignore the precepts, but he can't. What's more, he looked at Zhou Kuer's beautiful face, felt her now more enchanting figure, and smiled proudly. When has he seen a woman as beautiful as you? Zhou Kuer asked curiously. You mean, this is his weakness? Zhang Yi said, this is the weakness of all men in the world. Zhou Kuer's eyes lit up. Are you going to use this weakness to deal with him? At this point, she stared at Zhang Yi cautiously. Don't try to hit on me. Zhang Yi pinched her small nose a little harder with some anger. What nonsense are you talking about?
You really want to piss me off to death.
Don't worry, I'm not interested in wearing a green hat on my head. But he looked in the direction where the funeral master was going away, his eyes rolled, and he murmured in a low voice, as long as he has a weakness, sooner or later we can find a way to deal with him. It was afternoon. For ordinary people, the Chuanzhao Dharma Assembly was officially convened. Outside the Songjia Temple, a huge platform had been set up. Outside the platform, tens of thousands of people who had gathered here early were kneeling on the ground, holding incense burners in their hands devoutly, waiting for the funeral master and the great Lama to preach. People from the 4 major chieftain families had arrived. Pachi Gesang led Zhang Yi and others to a place on the platform and sat down and waited. Zhang Yi looked around and saw people from the other 4 major families. He didn't know many people, but he still recognized those heads of families. Are the few people I met that night among them? Zhang Yi's eyes wandered among them. However, there were quite a few people from each household, and most of them were wearing tight combat uniforms, and it was almost difficult to see their faces. Zhang Yi thought of what the rebel said, so he calmed down and waited for the development of the situation. Chapter 1319 Festival. The Chuanzhao Dharma Assembly was officially held. Lamas in bright red robes carried huge tongqin and played solemn music. The sound was like a huge bell, penetrating the sky, making the surrounding atmosphere suddenly solemn. The tantric followers buried their heads even lower. Not long after, a monk from Songjia Temple came out from the back wearing complicated robes. They all held instruments in their hands, some of which were drums, with white skins like jade and bright red drum bodies like blood. They walked and beat them while chanting. The sound of the drums and the sound of the tongqin symphony, and the sound made Fatty Sue dare not smile. After a while, people in colorful clothes came out, singing and dancing. A dozen lamas carried a large barrel and placed it in the middle of the square. On the other side, there was a large pot with a diameter of at least 5 or 6 meters, which had been placed on the stove. Zhang Yi found it quite interesting, but soon, the atmosphere on the scene became a little wrong. Because from outside, suddenly there were hundreds of monks, escorting more than 20 ragged, unkempt people to the center of the square. They were all tied with heavy chains, and they limped and made a clattering sound when they walked. Who are these people? Zhang Yi couldn't help but look at Paji Gesang. Chuanzhao Fa Hui, are there still prisoners to be executed? Paji Gesang said to Zhang Yi, these people are all captured rebels. To the outside, we will claim that they were bewitched by the demon kingdom and intended to fight against the demons of Tantra. Take advantage of today to execute them. This is also part of the ceremony. Zhang Yi and Liang Yu heard this and immediately understood that the situation was the same as they guessed. Sure enough, the 4 major families and Songjia Temple were going to set up a trap here and wait for the rebels to come to the rescue. Among these people, Zhang Yi saw several familiar faces. Walking at the front of the team was a woman who was tied with the heaviest chains and was followed by 4 monks with strong auras, holding Vajra and escorting them personally. After communicating with Shuma, Zhang Yi already knew her identity. Bam, the second-in-command of the rebels. That was the woman who led the men to ambush the master of the funeral when Zhang Yi and others entered the snowy area that day. For a moment, everything became clear. This was an open conspiracy. The second-in-command was going to be executed. If the rebels did not come to rescue them, they would not only suffer heavy losses, but also lose the support of the people. But if they came to rescue, they must have already laid a net around them. The rebels would only die in vain. Zhang Yi was also a little curious in his heart, wanting to know how the Snow Mountain Eagle rescued his men. The rebels were being escorted, and there were curses all around. All the tantric believers looked at them, gnashing their teeth, and picked up everything they could get and threw them at them. The believers gnashed their teeth and denounced them for their betrayal of the Tantric Buddhism, their disloyalty to the master of the funeral and the Songjia temple. Soon, they were all taken to the center of the square. On both sides of the square, huge trees had already erected execution racks. They were tied up high and stood like flags in the square. This was a display to let people see the fate of those who rebelled against the Tusi and Songjia temple. A great lama from Songjia temple came over and loudly denounced their actions. These rebels have surrendered to the devil. They don't want to see the people of the snowy plateau live a happy life. They have been fighting against the great funeral master and the Tripa and stigmatizing the Tusi, who worked hard to defend our power. It is because of these people that our lives are so difficult now. Only by eliminating the rebels can the snowy plateau usher in true peace and happiness. The loudspeaker conveyed these words to everyone's ears. At the same time, the bronze chain and the magic instruments played solemn music, giving people a feeling of power and prison, which agitated people's hearts and minds and instinctively knelt lower. Sure enough, influenced by the Great Lama, the curses outside the venue became louder. They threw the things in their hands from a distance and smashed them at the rebels hanging on the execution rack. On the faces of those rebels, some sneered, some were numb, and some were sad. They tried to shout in rebuttal, but their voices were too soft and drifted away with the wind, so no one could hear them. Next, another series of complicated procedures were completed. Under the expectation of everyone, the funeral master finally appeared in person. The moment he appeared, a golden light rose from Songjia temple, illuminating all directions, just like a golden sun rising from Songjia temple. This golden light was warm and reflected on the faces of every believer, making them look intoxicated. Even many believers were so excited that they shed tears and cried loudly. Fourth Master, 50 Master, Great 50 Master, protect your people, dispel the severe cold, enrich our land, and let us live happily. The golden light rushed straight into the sky and actually dispelled the dark clouds in the sky, causing the heavy snow to stop abruptly. The believers became even more excited, kneeling on the ground and kowtowed desperately, shouting the name of the funeral master. Even Paji Gesang and others at the scene couldn't help but kneel down. Such a miracle. How could one not be moved? Zhang Yi looked calm, but Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue behind him were also dumbfounded. This is a miracle. Zhou Haimei almost knelt down. Fortunately, at this time, Yang Xinxin said in a voice that only they could hear, "It is indeed amazing, but it can also be done with scientific methods." Hearing this, everyone looked at Zhang Yi. "Zhang Yi, can you do it?" Zhang Yi shrugged. "I can use a cannon to blast the clouds away." He was not impressed by the so-called miracles. After reaching the realm of Ypsilon, every alien will have mysterious and powerful abilities. The method used by the funeral master is indeed very suitable for being a charlatan, and it is quite good to use it to scare people. The llamas played louder. The funeral master, wearing a bright red robe and a crown on his head, slowly appeared on the square. He was shrouded in a soft golden light, which made him look like a god. Tens of thousands of believers in front of him shouted his name like a tsunami. Even Paji Gesang and others were lying on the ground, not daring to look up at his face. "This is the power of religion," Zhang Yi said secretly in his heart. "These people have lived in the snowy plateau for decades and have been influenced imperceptibly. Now they only need the funeral master to show some miracles to make them bow down obediently." Zhang Yi looked at the funeral master, who was shining with golden light and looked like a Buddha, and then looked at the huge bronze instruments and magic tools made of human skin and human bones that kept making noises, and a smile with an inexplicable meaning appeared at the corner of his mouth. It turns out that the so-called religion is nothing more than this. Chapter 13:20 Sky Burial Ceremony. The power of religion on people is nothing more than this method. When Zhang Yi saw the Tantric Dharma assembly, he felt that it was like the MLM organization he had heard of. If you want a group to have cohesion, you have to establish a common enemy and become an external crisis. Then establish a collective consciousness so that everyone can focus on the interests of the group and put aside their own. As for brainwashing, through a large gathering of many people, speak some seemingly reasonable principles, make verbal promises, and then use the sound of Hongzhong Dalu to shock. Slowly, people become one of the thousands of believers and are forced to become believers. So at this time, Zhang Yi looked at the high-ranking funeral master in the center of the square and felt that he looked a bit like a charlatan. It's just that this person's expression is indeed pious enough. Perhaps he believes in Buddha from the bottom of his heart, but this is the most terrifying thing. The funeral master stood in front of tens of thousands of people and began to promote Buddhism. His voice was very nice, as gentle as a spring breeze, passing through the crowd and into everyone's ears. Everything is causal. The sufferings that people experience in the world are all trials and tests from the Buddha. When you pass the test, you will be able to become a Buddha right away and ascend to the paradise. The reason why people suffer is because there are too many desires in their hearts. Greed, lust, gluttony, jealousy, anger, these are the root causes of suffering. Only by pursuing your true heart and not relying on external things can you be liberated. The funeral master kept talking for a while, all about Buddhism. The people below were in tears, and many of them even made expressions of sudden enlightenment, and then prostrated themselves on the ground, lying on the ground in a big letter shape. It was so cold, and I didn't know how they could bear it. However, Yang Xinxin told Zhang Yi and others, the power of faith can indeed make people forget the cold, pain, and hunger like advanced hypnosis. After the funeral master talked about Buddhism, he retreated to the throne. He was devoted to practicing Buddhism, so he was naturally not so familiar with the complicated process of the Chuanzhao Dharma assembly. Everything had to be presided over by Daiji Tripa. He strode to the center of the square, his eyes swept over the people present, and then looked at the rebels who were tied high on the execution rack. Amitabha. He clasped his hands together and chanted the Buddha's name, and then said in a cold voice, "The world is in chaos, and demons are born. The remnants of the demon country that once wreaked havoc on the snowy plateau have appeared again. They tried to deceive people into becoming demons like they did thousands of years ago, and then brought great disasters to the entire snowy plateau. But under the leadership of the funeral master, we will never let this happen again." Among the believers below, someone immediately raised his fist and shouted loudly, "Kill them! Kill them!" One person started shouting, and then led 10 people, 100 people, until tens of thousands of people around the square were shouting, "Kill them!" They looked at the rebels on the execution rack with hatred in their eyes, as if all the pain they suffered today was caused by these people. They gnashed their teeth, wishing they could pounce on them and bite off their flesh bit by bit. "Now, we will sacrifice the flesh and blood of these demons to the gods and Buddhas here. This is a declaration of war against the demon kingdom. It will represent that our tantric Buddhism will never succumb to the demons." The shouts below became more intense. The crazy scene made Zhang Yi and his companions feel a layer of fine goosebumps on their bodies. The crazy expressions of those believers were really terrifying. Then, Daiji waved his hand, and several people in uniform walked onto the stage with knives. Zhang Yi knew the man in the lead, who was the chef of the Paji family, Paji Luodan. He still had that meticulous 3:7 split hair, and his hair should have been groomed with hair oil, without a trace of mess. Zhang Yi said in his heart, "It's about to start. The next step is undoubtedly to execute the rebel prisoners." But it was a cook who came, which was really creepy. Zhou Kutter subconsciously hugged Zhang Yi's arm tightly and said in a trembling voice, "The so-called execution they are doing is to give these people on the spot." She didn't say the second half of the sentence because it felt cruel just thinking about it. At this time, they finally understood what the big wooden barrel carried to the middle of the square and the huge pot were used for. Gulp. Yang Xia swallowed her saliva. She felt a little nauseous. "Zhang Yi, or let's leave first." Although I have seen the methods of the Paji family treating people like sheep before, it was just a quick glance. But now, watching them cook a group of living people, it is indeed hard to accept. If you don't want to watch, close your eyes and block out the sound. Now we suddenly leave. It's too conspicuous. Zhang Yi said in a somewhat cold voice. He was not angry with Yang Xia, but the current scene made him feel heavy in his heart. Especially when he looked at the church members below. When they heard that these rebels were going to be slaughtered, they actually showed greed in their eyes and subconsciously raised their bowls. At this time, Zhang Yi just understood why Paji Gesang and others were so accustomed to this kind of thing. It turns out that in the snowy plateau today, this is already a normal things. Paji Gesang also explained to Zhang Yi diligently this ceremony is called sky burial, and it must be handled by a professional sky burial master. In the process of sky burial, the meat on the body needs to be cut into suitable small pieces and then fed to the eagle. In our snowy plateau, eagles are believed to be messengers of gods and can take people's souls to paradise. So this ceremony is to purify them. Zhang Yi looked around and didn't see a single eagle. No wonder, now the animals still alive in the snowy plateau can't get close to humans. There is a risk of being caught and eaten. Most of the eagles can't stand the extreme cold and have frozen to death long ago. There are no eagles, so people are hired instead? Zhang Yi asked playfully. Paji Gesang laughed. After they die, they can enter the stomachs of tantric believers, which can be regarded as purification. This method also has a special meaning. After eating the flesh and blood of the rebels, the possibility of these believers being turned against and joining the rebels in the future is greatly reduced. As the main surgeon this time, Luo Dan meticulously completed the layout in the center of the square. Sky burial requires a professional sky burial platform and knives for cutting flesh and blood. He brought a complete set of knives, including cutting, chopping, and bone removal. Before the sky burial ceremony, you also need to pray to the gods and Buddhas, hoping that these dead people can be purified and enter the Western paradise. Dear viewers, thanks for your patience. Really appreciated. Enjoy the video. Please like and comment if not already. Thanks.